This episode of Rolled Up is brought to you in part by Nogi Industries and Defense Soap. I'm an avid traveler, CEO of BudoVideos.com, and lifelong student of the martial arts, who strives to know more about the competitors and instructors who are revolutionizing the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. Join me in my journey as I train, learn, and get rolled up. Originally a stopover on the pioneer trails of the West, Las Vegas is home to a new sort of pioneer, that of the MMA fighter. MMA fighters come from around the globe to gamble at the chance of becoming the next MMA superstar. Among those commissioned to train these future fighters is Robert Drysdale. A champion in his own right, Drysdale has learned from and trained some of the best in the business. Originally from Provo, Utah, and born to an American father and Brazilian mother, Robert had the unique opportunity to live in both the US and Brazil, giving his jiu-jitsu a completely unique perspective. Over a spicy bowl of Penang chicken curry, I got to know a little bit more about Robert's childhood upbringing in both Brazil and the US, and the difficulty of his father accepting his decision to teach jiu-jitsu for a living. So Robert, you grew up in a Brazilian-American household, right?
Yeah.
Which one of your parents is Brazilian?
My mom's Brazilian, dad's American.
How was that experience?
It was good. You know, like my dad, he was a Mormon missionary. So, you know, when he moved back to the United States, he spoke fluent Portuguese, and that's how he met my mom. My mom was going to school here in the United States, and my dad loves Brazil, so he's very I mean, in fact, I've never seen a foreigner speak a second language so well as my dad speaks Portuguese. He's absolutely in love with Brazilian culture, so it wasn't really like having an American dad. Although he's very familiar with American culture, like he's so Brazilian in so many ways that it was kind of like having, you know, just having like a normal Brazilian parents. And yeah, my mom, you know, she's an English teacher. She's fairly familiar with American culture. It was good. It was a good experience. It was, I think, me growing up in two different countries definitely opened up my eyes for a lot of different, you know, different culture, different experiences, different ways of looking at things. Whereas if you only live in one country your whole life, I think that you're more narrow-minded in a lot of ways. So I'm capable of seeing cultural differences that most people can't see. So when I go back to Brazil and I look at things and I'm like, that's absurd. Like, if you grow up in Brazil, you don't notice it because that's all you know. And it's the same thing over here. If you experience other cultures, you're capable of looking at your own culture and going, that's crazy. That's, you know, why do we do it? Why do we do it that way and not this way? That way is much better. Or, you know, so that being able to compare the two cultures definitely opened my mind in, you know, a lot of different ways. And I think it was a good positive experience. Like I'm happy that I spent most of my childhood in Brazil, but at the same time, I'm happy that I'm here right now. You know, so, I mean, I wish I had lived in a third country. I mean, that would have been a great experience as well. I think that the more you experience, the more you learn about, you know, life and people in general.
And you went back and forth from America to Brazil.
Yeah.
Why did you go back and forth?
Well, I think, I grew up, I was born here. When I was like 5 or 6, my mom, I don't know if you guys know this, but Brazilian women don't adapt too well in the United States for some while. They're here for 3-4 years and end up wanting to go back home. And my mom wanted to go back, and it wasn't much, you know, she didn't really have to convince my dad because he loves Brazil. So it was like, all right, you want to go back, let's go back. So they moved back to a small city outside São Paulo called Itu. And that's where I grew up. That's where I went to school. And, you know, both my parents just teaching English. You know, they opened a language institute in Itu, and they taught English, French, German, Italian. So it was, you know, that's where I grew up. I grew up with parents that were teachers, so I'm completely used to. In my head, it's something I not only enjoy, but it's something that I think kind of runs in the family. You know, I like being able to communicate with people and, you know, just share my knowledge with them.
How did they feel about you teaching jiu-jitsu as a profession?
I think my mom was an athlete as well. She was like world-class swimmer. She was like a step away from the Olympics in Brazil. She held records, so she was really good at what she did. So she understood it better than my dad. You know, when I was like 17, 18, I was really serious about jiu-jitsu. I think my dad started worrying a little bit, where my mom was like, you know, you do whatever makes you happy. And I remember having this conversation with my dad, where my dad's like, Rob, you got to get a job. You got to stop playing Karate Kid and fix those ears, get rid of those tattoos, this is not real life. You know, you can't. And I understand where he's coming from. You know, like it's not. If you think about it, it's not. You know, what are the odds that you're going to make a living from martial arts? Just very slim. And I just didn't care, man. I remember being in my 20s, living with my mom still, and I'm like, Mom, this is what I want to do. My mom was like, this is what you love, this is what you got to do. In my head, I was convinced I was going to live under a bridge. Like, I had no life expectation as far as like ever being able to live off of jiu-jitsu. It was not something I had. Because in Brazil, if you teach jiu-jitsu, you make $300-400 a month. And that's it. That's it. There are no, I don't care how many world titles you won, you're not going to have more than 20 students. That's normal in Brazil. So I didn't have any expectations. And my dad was starting to worry, but I just didn't care. I was just like so in love with the sport, so determined to see how far I can make it in the sport that it wasn't even an issue. Like, what am I going to do? What if this happens or that happens? Like, it's not that I didn't have a plan B, I just didn't care about plan B. Like plan B, there was no plan, there was plan A. I'm going to train jiu-jitsu and see what happens. And this is what I love. I was having so much fun, I couldn't stop. So I ended up going to college and all that. So in worst case scenario, I could do something else. I can always go teach English in Brazil, whatever. So I did have a backup plan in case something went wrong. But fortunately, things went well, and yeah, man, it was just like now my dad, we talk about it. He's like, yeah, you know. But in a way, there's always kind of like that. You know, you're one of the few, you're one of the 1% who is able to live off of this. Like, so from his perspective, not wanting me to do this, I completely understand it. You know, but just fortunately things just turned out. Now he's like the biggest jiu-jitsu fan in the world. He follows the UFC. Like 10 years ago, it was something he would never consider watching, and now he's like the biggest UFC fan there is. So it's kind of cool.
You had some great instructors. You learned from Terere and Leo Vieira. Who else were your big influences?
There was a guy, and he was 20-30 minutes away from my house. When I moved back to Brazil in the year 2000, that's where I started training with Paulo Strecker. He was a very good instructor, and he's the guy that I credit him a lot, because it wasn't just as far as like technique went. It wasn't just that. It was the fact that he pushed us so hard to compete. Like he was one of those instructors. Like, no, we're going. I don't have any money. Well, I'm going to get you a sponsor. You're going. And if you look at my jiu-jitsu resume, for example, if you look at the year 2001, 2002, I competed more in those 2 years than I think I competed in the rest of my jiu-jitsu life, because we would compete literally every weekend. Like I think there was 1 year where I was like 31 tournaments in 1 year. So that's, he was just, and I don't care, we didn't care how far it was. Like, there's at one tournament, we think we drove for 24 hours to make it to the competition. So there was that kind of dedication, that kind of commitment to the sport, and I think that he put that in us. It wasn't just us. We loved it because we're having a blast. It's jiu-jitsu. We're all kids, we're just traveling and having a good time. But it was definitely his guidance that pushed us to compete that much, and that's when I got the competition bug. So jiu-jitsu just stopped. At that point, it stopped being a hobby, and it was something I was very passionate about. Like, I can be good at this, man. Like, what? I just won the state championships. Maybe I can win the Brazilian Nationals. I won the Brazilian Nationals, maybe I can win the Worlds. So I credit him a lot for that. Another guy I give a lot of credit to is Steve Da Silva. When I moved to Vegas in '99, he was a brown belt at the time, and I was a white belt, but he just believed in me, man. He was the one that was telling me, "Bro, you could be good at this." At the time, I was just having fun. It was a hobby still, but he was telling me, "Man, you could be good at this, man. You can make this. You can take it to the next level if you want." And then that's when I started thinking, that's not a bad idea. Maybe that's what I'll do. And the guy was an awesome instructor. Gave me so much support, not only technically, but on the psychological level as well. So I give them a lot of credit. And of course, then Terere and Leo. Terere is a phenomenal coach. If you think about the guys that came out of TT, and TT, how it's split into so many different teams, and how many successful people came out of that camp. The guy, he's a phenomenal coach. And Leo is just like a jiu-jitsu genius, man. The guy's a jiu-jitsu freak. Like, arguably the most talented guy I've ever rolled with when it comes to just pure talent. Yeah, great coach too. Needless to say, how many good guys he's put out there, like how many good students he has. So it was a privilege to train with all these guys. I learned a lot from them, and I credit them all. And fortunately, I have a great relationship with every single one of them. Right.
Well, you did take jiu-jitsu to the next level. In 2007, you submitted Marcelo Garcia, the ADCC. Is that the crowning achievement of your jiu-jitsu career?
I think it is. I think as far as the jiu-jitsu title, I've won a lot of other terms, but Abu Dhabi is arguably the one that everyone wants to win the most, even more than the jiu-jitsu worlds. In a way, I kind of came to resent that match a little bit, because to me it was about Abu Dhabi. And when people, every time they mention that fight, oh, it's because, oh, that's the guy that beat Garcia. Kind of makes me look like the one-hit wonder. It kind of upsets me a little bit. It's like, oh, it's not true. But again, it's a great achievement at the same time. So I guess I think like this because, yeah, like I would not like to be remembered as the guy that, yeah, that's the guy that beat Garcia, which is the comment most people make, you know, like all that. Yeah, there was him, but there were some other people too. There wasn't just that. It's not like I just popped up on the mat and there was Abu Dhabi and nothing else, you know. But that because it's the biggest tournament, the most important division, and it was against arguably the most technical grappler in all time ever, you know. So it was the combination of all those things that make people remember that match. But like I said, in a way, it kind of like it makes people think of me as that, you know, you got lucky that one time. Like, no, man, not really. I beat some people that are at least as good as him, you know. So yeah, but it was a good day. It was a happy day, you know, especially because I didn't do well in my division. I ended up taking third. I lost close match to Shunji, so I was pretty upset, you know, because I know how hard I trained. My teammates were like, I don't know how the fuck you lost that match, man. You know, they were like, man, you're supposed to win this whole thing, because they had so much confidence that I was going to win my weight class in the Open that, you know, I was just disappointed with myself, but I was disappointed. I was scared that I had disappointed my teammates too, and they were like, man, you're supposed to win it all, man. You're the sharpest we've ever seen anyone. And so I walked in there in the Open with a different mindset. Like, I know there are a lot of good guys in here, but I believe if I had competed in that Open, you know, 100 times over, I would have won it 100 times. It was just my day. Nothing anyone could have done against me would have stopped me. I was like so confident for that final. It was like a supreme state of confidence. Something that I've only experienced a few times in my life. Like, I remember smiling before the match, just like happy. And they're like, bro, you got to focus. You're going in 10 minutes. And I'm just like celebrating already, because in my head I already won. Like, there was nothing that he could have done to beat me that day. Like, in my head it was just, this is what I'm gonna do, and I know what he's gonna try to do to me, but it's not gonna work because I'm not gonna let him. It was just like this supreme form of confidence. And you know, it's a state that's difficult to reach, but I think that when you have that in your head that you are gonna win, there's nothing your opponent can do to stop you. No one can beat you. You know, it's a sense of invincibility. And yeah, so that was a big day. I can remember some other occasions, you know, like some other days that were very significant. I always remember this one tournament where I won the state championships in São Paulo as a purple belt. I won my weight class in the Open. And that was like the big tournament. That's the first big tournament I've ever won, because like there were a lot of good guys. Like, even guys that are still active today that were competing that day. And I beat everyone. It was like such a big deal. Because I remember, like, I'd be so happy afterwards, and driving back home, my coach, Paulo Strecker, told me, man, you're the best purple belt in São Paulo, in the state of São Paulo. And it doesn't sound like a lot right now, but at the time it was like, man, it was life-changing. I remember being so happy. I couldn't sleep that night. I was so overwhelmed with the fact that I won the state championships, purple belt level, and my weight class in the Open. It was just such a happy day. So I remember, to me, that emotionally speaking, it was as significant as Abu Dhabi. On your resume, it doesn't count nearly as much, but personally, on the personal level, it counts just as much, because it was such a big day. In a way, it was kind of like a turning point. You know, when I won the state championship, like, oh man, if I won the state championships, that means I'm quoted to win. There's a very big chance I can win the world. People who won the state championships last year ended up going and win the world as well. So in my head, I started, man, I can win the world championships. You know, so it was a huge boost to my confidence.
2009 ADCC, you lost a really close match to Jacare. What's your memories of that match?
I of course expected a lot more of myself. I hate making excuses, and I'm not gonna make any. Just certain things that didn't help me. Like for example, I think they told me that the match was gonna go at 5. So I get there, like, I don't know, I think I got there like 3:30 or something. And then they're like, oh, you're up in 10 minutes. And I'm like, what about 5? Oh, the tournament went fast, so you're up in 10 minutes. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? So they gave me literally like 10 minutes to prepare. You know, so I'm not saying that's why I lost, but it certainly didn't help. So there was no warm-up. And I warmed up during the match, you know, so I'm going, and Jacare is the kind of guy, I knew he was going to come out like a madman. That's how he is. He comes out very strong. I knew I was in good shape, but because I didn't have the warm-up, he started out up here, I started out down here. And I felt that towards the end of the match, I saw him getting tired. And if you look at the last 5 minutes of the match, last 3 minutes maybe, it was me pushing him, it was the other way around. I believe if we had gone overtime, that would have gone a different way, because he was starting to go down, and I was starting to feel the match. That's when I started feeling good, towards the end. That's when I kind of woke up, so to speak. I I scored 2 points on myself. I was, you know, I've never been the most technical guy or the best athlete, but I've always bragged about being a smart competitor. I was never the kind of guy to make too many strategical mistakes in a fight. Like, I had a game plan, I stuck to the game plan, and if I have to win this fight by advantage, I know what I have to do to win this fight by advantage. But I was very smart as a competitor. And to me, to score 2 points on myself like I did was just, I can't believe I did that. Once I saw the points, I'm like, oh, that's like the most stupid, that's a rookie mistake that I hadn't committed in years. Maybe it's the fact that I hadn't competed in a while, a little ring rust maybe, so maybe that was it. Maybe not fully aware of the rules. I know that, you know, because I shot in and I set to guard. In Abu Dhabi, if you don't commit to the shot before you sit, they score the guy 2 points for a takedown. So that's exactly what happened. I shot in and set to guard, and not realizing that I was going to get 2 points scored on me. Once I realized, man, what did I just do? It's too late. He scored 2 points on me, and that was it. But not to take credit from Jacare, he's phenomenal. He's a great athlete. We actually, you know, he was living with me a few months before that fight. Not a lot of people know this, yeah, because he was in Vegas training with us at Extreme Couture, and yeah, he was crashing in my apartment. So, you know, when he took that fight, I was like, huh, that's interesting, you know, because you and Jacare were part of Braza for years together, but we actually never trained, because every time he came to Sao Paulo, for some reason, I wasn't there. I never went to Manaus. We were in Rio on the same mats, but we actually never trained with each other until he came to Vegas. And then we trained with each other a whole bunch. And then a few months later, when Roger hurt himself, Jacare's supposed to replace him. I'm like, that's interesting. Out of all people, you know, the guy that I've been training with the most is the guy I'm going to be fighting. So there was, you know, I guess because we trained with each other a lot while he was here, he kind of expected, you know, it was a mutual expectation. Like, I knew what he was going to come, I knew what he was going to do and avoid, and he knew what to do and what to avoid. So in a way, it was, I mean, it could have gone either way. It could have been an advantage for me too, but it turned out to be an advantage for him. He knew what to do and what not to do with me, and he used it really well against me.
So Robert, what is it that you like about the butterfly guard?
I think it's a very functional guard. It's something that, like, you know, I started out training exclusively with the gi, and spider guard was my game. That's what I did. Spider guard, De La Riva, and that was like almost everything I did, you know. And once I started getting into no-gi, I started thinking about, you know, maybe one day I want to compete some no-gi tournaments. I want to fight MMA. So I started transitioning. You know, like, of course, my spider guard game went out the window, and the next obvious guard for me was butterfly. I think it's very functional in the sense where it allows me to control the distance really well. It gives me a number of offensive options. I play with overhooks a lot, which kind of invites your opponent to come in. A lot of people, when they play butterfly, they go underhook, which is what everyone teaches. It's not incorrect, but it's hard to get, because as soon as you get an underhook on someone, they start sprawling on you and moving back. No one's going in. But I play overhooks, which is kind of inviting. I got a lot of my stuff from Terere. Like, he's the one that kind of got me into the butterfly. And it was around the time I started training more and more no-gi. So it was a perfect fit. You know, I liked it right away, and it made perfect sense. And yeah, so like there you go. It's great. You know, defensively speaking, I can control the distance. I can kick him off. I can stand back up if I want. He can't really hold me down. You know, a lot of different sweep options, a lot of different submission options, and it doesn't matter if I'm gi or no gi. And even for MMA, a lot of MMA guys that come here, like I emphasize the butterfly guard a lot, because I think it's a highly functional guard in the fight.
Would you even pull a butterfly guard?
Depends on the opponent, really. You know, I wouldn't recommend, generally speaking, if you're on the bottom, you are losing a fight, either because the judges are looking at it like that, or because you're getting hit. But you know, it's something I'd consider, but it wouldn't be my A game. It wouldn't be plan A. Definitely not.
So what's important for you in a butterfly guard?
I like to stay active on my hips, and I think this is a concept that goes for guard in general. I think if you look at the top 10 guard players, you know, the ones you prefer, it doesn't matter what list that is, what you're going to notice is that they're very active on your hips. I normally say that a hip movement is for jiu-jitsu what footwork is for boxing. You have to be light on your hips, and that's why lightweights typically play guard better than heavyweights, because it's harder for them to move. Little guys, you watch a guy like Cobrinha or Rafa Mendes, and they're like, every 2 seconds their butt's in a new spot, whether they realize it or not. They're so active about, and it's not so much the legs, it's the hips. They're really light on their butts, and they can move from here to there and find angles really easily. And to me, the butterfly is about being light on your hips. It's about moving forward, moving back, moving right, moving left, finding angles to get your opponent off balance, and looking for different ways to put him out of position so you can come up with something.
Can you show me a little bit of that?
Sure. So one thing I've been working on a lot recently is, like I said, whenever I go with an underhook, this is the problem with this, and it's a great position, but it's predictable. He kind of knows where I'm going. He knows I'm going to try to sweep him over there, and immediately he gets the whizzer on me and starts sprawling. So I don't always get a deep underhook. So what I do here instead, to kind of counter for the fact that I don't have a deep underhook, is I connect my hands behind the back of his neck, and I place my forehead on his face. What this does, it prevents him from turning into me, and it kind of keeps me in position. Now, Jake's smart. What he's going to try to do, he's going to try to move to his right. So if he starts moving to his right and I do nothing about it, he's going to beat me. Okay? So I have to prevent that, and I prevent that with two things. One, I'm going to step on his hip with my right foot. Okay, two, I'm going to keep this butterfly hook on his leg. I always say that a butterfly hook should be attached to my opponent's leg. It shouldn't be sitting on the ground. Because if it's sitting on the ground, I'm slow to react. This guy starts moving around, I'm going to have to see him move before I can follow him. If I'm attached to his leg, I can feel him move before he goes. So it's more of a feeling thing. So when I'm here and he starts moving to his right now, I can keep him in position. But look, getting really heavy on my right foot and on my left butterfly hook, and I force myself on my right hip. See what happens? My arm naturally slides from this side of his head towards this side, and now I'm attacking his shoulder. Let's do it again. So when I'm in here, and this is what they always do, they always try to just put me flat on my back and move around, and I go in here. And this is my position. Notice that I keep my butterfly, my left knee still on the outside, my right foot still on his hip. And I put my elbow on the mat. That's a big thing about this position. If I put my shoulder on the mat, he's got more to work with. He might have a chance of coming forward and rolling his arm out. But when I put my elbow on the mat, not only is it a lot tighter, but it's harder for him to go forward. So this, generally speaking, is a better position. Another thing I do is I try not to go for the elbow right away, because I can always move from shoulder to elbow. I can't always move from elbow to shoulder. So I initiate my position up here, and I grind my way to submission. And anywhere along the way, he's going to tap. If he's got very flexible shoulders, it's going to wait a little bit longer. He's going to tap on his elbow. Most people, they tap right about here because their shoulders just aren't flexible. So I'll do it again. So I'll connect my hands. Another important thing I didn't mention is if I'm in front of Jake, of course, it's going to make it easier for him to walk around me. So I really make an effort to stand on this side. Okay? So now I don't need a deep underhook. I just need my hand in there, and I just need to connect my hands. And I stay on my right butt cheek. See that? My left hip's off the ground? This is what I'm looking for. Okay? Now when he starts moving around, my arm just slides over and I keep him away. This is my submission right here. Okay? A very common thing for Jake to do here is for him to fall on his left hip. Because if he falls on his left hip, now he's giving me top position, but it takes the pressure off the shoulder. So he's not going to tap from this right here. I can't finish him with this. Well, I could let go and just go to mount and score my points, but a better thing to do is come up and I keep this pressure right here. Look, I'm still pinching his hand with my head. So right here I can score my points for mount and then go for an arm bar. I can just finish him right here. Got him. Or, arm bar. You have the options. There's 50 different ways we can finish that right there. But that's a very common thing. The guy falls on his hip and I just follow him up. Another one I like, and this I normally go for, if the guy's very flexible, both shoulder and elbow. I'm trying to finish him there, but he just can't finish him. I get all the way to here. I get this way, and what happens is he's just flexible, can't do anything. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna disconnect my hands and open up my right hand. And now I step over with my left hook. I step over all the way around. Right here I can make him tap already, but in case his hand slides off, I still have an underhook. I loop his leg, call this right here the anchor. Once I'm holding on to this, Jake can't come up. He can try to get to his knees, but he's stuck because he needs this bottom leg to come up. And it gives me plenty of time to step over and go for my arm bar. Do that again. Over here, forearm on his head, step on his hip. So even if he doesn't move around, I can still go for this and start extending him, opening him up. But normally that's not the case. Normally they begin, go back. Normally when I'm here, I begin to, he starts moving around when he moves around. That's when I get it. Now that I got him here, let's say he's very flexible, he's not tapping. I open up my right hand, I step over his head. Look, I like to go knee down, not foot down. Normally they tap right here. If the arm slides off, I just go for my roll. I go elbow deep on his back, step over. Always elbow deep on the arm bar and on the leg. Makes it harder for him to defend himself.
There's a lot of pressure when you rotate towards the mat.
Yeah, it puts a lot of strain on the shoulder. Even like people that are very flexible, they normally tap there. But I'm always assuming like the worst case scenario, that guy's a freak of nature and he's just not tapping because he's just extremely flexible. And man, we've all seen that. People just don't tap from shoulder locks. They just don't tap from wrist locks or whatever. Right. It's a blessing. I wish I were like that. I'm not that flexible.
Right.
This is your train station, your canvas, your metronome, your cable bridge. The steel threads of your past suspending the blueprints of your future. Your courtroom bench, you pass sentences to all those that accept mediocrity. You traverse the road less traveled. Every win, a friendly hitchhiker. Every loss, an unwanted stowaway. Your country. Defend what you have built. The natural ingredients in defense soap proven effective against grappling-related skin infections. Go to defensesoap.com to learn more.
Void of the glitzy, modern hotels, Fremont Street is the original downtown of Las Vegas, and it's the setting I chose to grab a drink and talk about how Robert maintains his lifestyle in Vegas, his balance of gi, no-gi, and MMA training, and innovation in the sport.
So Robert, you live in Vegas. Doesn't seem like Sin City would be the best place to be a fighter and to train hard.
Yeah. No, it is, man. I think it's the mecca for MMA, at least. Jiu-jitsu here, we probably have 20, 30 black belts who live here. So, I mean, there are a lot of good people to train with. I actually really like Vegas.
Isn't there a lot of distractions?
You know what? I'm pretty mild when it comes to partying, or I don't get sucked into the Vegas lifestyle. Some people can't live in Vegas. I know people that are very successful as fighters so long as they're not in Vegas. If they lived here, it would just be their downfall. So I don't recommend Vegas for everyone. But I'm pretty chilled. My free time is spent at home reading books, playing video games, or just sitting on the couch and doing nothing. Maybe watching a movie or documentary. So I don't really get sucked into the whole Vegas scene.
Robert, you have a successful school here, and it seems like you focus a little bit more on no-gi than gi. Is that a fair assumption?
I think on a personal level, there's definitely been a focus on no-gi jiu-jitsu, because I've been leaning towards MMA now. But I think my classes go 70% of them are gi and 30% are no-gi. And we started 50-50. That's a good, it was a good indicator of how people prefer to train with the gi over no-gi. Because we started 50-50, but the no-gi classes were always smaller. The gi classes were always crowded. So there's been a shift towards gi, because that's what people seem to prefer. That being said, because my MMA class this morning, for example, that was, it's a class not only for my students but for me too. That's when I train. That's when I get most of my grappling in. So it's jiu-jitsu / MMA with MMA in mind, so to speak. So yeah, I put the gi on. I'm a big fan of the gi, man. There's certain things about the gi that are missing out. If you don't train with it, you feel the difference. I think the main advantage is probably that isometric strength to develop with the gi. So a lot of times when the fight is slow, the match seems, they're just stalling, they're just sitting on each other. Well, they're not just sitting on each other. There's a lot of pull and push going on. There's a lot of tension going on there. And that kind of strength, you don't really develop without the gi. That kind of precision, that tightness, it's not there no-gi. No-gi is slippery. If anything you do something wrong, you get away with just slipping out of it. So generally speaking, it's less technical. I try to make an effort to put the gi on at least once a week. Even though it's not my thing anymore, at least once a week I'll get my gi on, and man, I feel the difference. There's certain things about it you just can't get without the gi.
So even though you're focusing on MMA now, you still see a benefit from training with the gi?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, man, I mean, if I had more gi training partners, unfortunately, a lot of my best guys at the gym are lightweights. I don't have a whole bunch of heavyweights. My best grapplers in the gym are all a lot lighter than me. So, I don't train with them as much as I would like to. But yeah, there's no doubt there's a benefit. I see the difference. If I don't train with the gi for a while, I actually feel I lost some of that squeeze, some of that tightness, that isometric strength that you develop with the gi. You don't get that no gi. So my recommendation, at least once a week, get your gi on. And you don't have to train, you don't have to be specific about, I'm going to play Spider Guard and BudoVideos here. My gi game is very no-gi oriented. I get guillotines with the gi. I go to the back, I'll use the collar chokes, but I try to emphasize rear naked choke and the palm-to-palm choke over a bow and arrow, for example, just because I know that I'm not going to be able to use the gi in a fight.
So for guys that like gi and no-gi equally, which is somebody like me, do you recommend using a style that works for both? Like taking out Spider Guard?
Absolutely. One thing that I was a Spider Guard player most of my life, and I started making a shift towards butterfly just because it was something. Because butterfly is something that works gi, no gi, and MMA. Same thing with a half guard. With spider guard, it's something you can only use gi. So my take on it is, you know, I'd rather be specialized in something that's going to work everywhere. Like back attack, it's such an important aspect of jiu-jitsu, and it's important no gi and gi. It's important in MMA. In a real situation, in a real fight, I think the back is extremely important. So I think those are the things you can put your energy to. If you're really into, you know, spider guard and belt.He and whatever, you know, it's not going to hurt your no gi game. You know, we see guys like, you know, like Rafa Mendes or a guy like Braulio, for example. They're great spider guard players, open guard players, but they do really well no gi. So what does that tell you? So even if it doesn't help your no gi game, it's certainly not going to hurt it.
Being that you're focusing more on MMA now for your career, you still keep up with the modern jiu-jitsu and tournaments?
Absolutely, man. It's such a passion. When I go to California to watch the Worlds, I kind of get that, you know, that itching, like, yeah, man, I should be in there, you know. Like, part of me wants to go back and compete because I know I can do well. I know this because I train with the guys that are winning. Every now and then they'll come to Vegas and we'll train, and I hang with them toe to toe, and they're winning at the highest level. So I'm thinking, man, give me 3 months with the gi and I'll be back on the top, you know. But I mean, I've put so much time in MMA now. I feel that if I go back to jiu-jitsu, I've already done that, man. It's kind of like doing what I've already done. So it's, to me, there's less of an incentive. Yeah, man. But like I try to keep up. A lot of it is new. Like the jiu-jitsu's changed, the sport's changing every year. But man, my students are the ones that keep up. Like they come in the gym and like, man, I saw this on YouTube, and I mean, that's genius. I never thought about that. You know, that's a great position. But when I go and I see purple belts doing moves that I've never seen before, I'm like, man, that's brilliant. You know, that's, to me, it's a triumph of jiu-jitsu. The fact that the sport's evolving. I think that a lot of people, especially people that are no longer in the competition circuit, they resent the fact that the sport has changed. They resent the fact that jiu-jitsu is no longer how it was in the 1980s or in the 1990s or the early 2000s. You know, the sport is always changing, but to me, that's a triumph of the sport. That's a good thing. You know, the fact that the next generation, my students will be better than me, or the fact that, you know, the newer generations are better grapplers, that's a testament of the sport, you know, getting better every year. But I think that a lot of people resent that because it's not their jiu-jitsu. Their jiu-jitsu was different. You know, when I started training, spider guard and butterfly were the big things. X guard was like, oh wow, man, X guard. It was like that was high tech, you know. And now these days we got berimbolo and 50-50, so you know it was just added to the sport. It just made it even better. Man, I try to learn. I see something I don't know. I did it. I was asking one of my blue belts a question. I mean, let me see, do that again. Oh, that's really good. And I try to learn. Yeah, when I train with the guy, I play around with it. I'll go berimbolo on people. I'm not great at it. It's not my A game. You know, if I really want to win, I end up going back to my fundamentals. But I enjoy it, man. I think it's important to be part of keep up with the evolution of the sport. And it's effective, man. I don't care what people say. When people start giving 50-50 a hard time, oh, it's stalling, it's stalling. What is it stalling? You can stall from close guard, you can stall from half guard, you can stall from mount, you can stall from side control, you can stall from anywhere. You can stall on your feet. The number one stalling position is on your feet. You know, so what are you going to do? Get rid of stand-up? You know, so now 50-50 is part of the game, man. You have to accept it. Oh, you don't want to stall? Okay, footlock the guy. Okay, don't get caught in it then. You know, so I don't fall into that trap of like, oh, that's not real jiu-jitsu, or it wouldn't work in a fight, or oh, that's not the jiu-jitsu that I learned from my. You know, it's, hey man, sport's changing. Keep up with the change. Keep up with the novelties, and if you don't, you're gonna get left behind.